Good evening, everyone. It being Monday, July 10th, 2023, call the Board of Selectmen's meeting to order at 6 p.m. Just a couple of pieces of housework. This meeting is being broadcast via Vonage and also will be recorded live video. If you'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a moment of silence for a member of the Webster Fire. He was a fireman for 20 years. Firefighter Anthony Ricardo, he was on Ladder 1, and he passed away on May 14th at a ripe old age. So just a moment of silence. Thank you. Next is approval of the regular session meeting minutes from June 12th.
Motion to approve regular session meeting minutes of June 12th.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any other comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Everybody was here. And next up is the executive session minutes from June 12th, 2023.
Motion to approve the executive session minutes, June 12th, 2023, and they are not to be released.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next on the agenda is we have Chris Jolder here, who's also from the fire department, that's retired now. Official, right, on Monday?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, very good. After, how many years again was that?
48 years and 3 months.
I was just a little kid when you were there. But you've seen it go through a lot of change, and you've been part of that change along the way. And, you know, when you think of Mr. Webster's and all you've done, not only for the fire department, but for the community and everything else, I think it's much appreciated.
Thank you.
And we hope you enjoy your retirement and with your wife and your puppy and, well, not a puppy, but.
I just can't believe how fast it's gone by. It's great.
Well, that's good. That's good. And you're still young enough to enjoy it, so.
Hopefully.
We have a proclamation here for you. In recognition of 46 years of service, Deputy Fire Chief Chris Jolder, know it all men by these present, that the town of Webster hereby officially recognizes Deputy Chief Chris Jolder for his hard work and dedication to the town of Webster. Whereas Chris Jolder was appointed to the rescue squad on January 1st, 1977. Whereas Chris Jolder rose through the ranks from private to chief of the rescue squad. Whereas the rescue and fire departments merged in July of 2012, and Chris Jolder became deputy chief of the rescue operations. Whereas Chris Jolder was appointed full-time deputy fire chief, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen wish to join with the citizenry of Webster on this 10th day of July 2023 in recognizing Deputy Fire Chief Chris Jolder, and proclaim that his outstanding service to his community and his dedication to the town of Webster shall not be forgotten.
Offer unto the yes.
Does anyone else wish to say anything?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted, I don't know if retired Deputy Chief Jolder wanted to say any words or not. I know I want to personally thank him. I've watched him grow up, even though he's just a couple years older than me. He's had a tremendous impact on the town and the fire department. It would literally not be what it is today, Chris, if you weren't a part of it for 47 or 48 years. But thanks for all your service. Thanks for all you've done. I won't miss those phone calls from you to, find out if we can find a way to do funding for something. But no, I wish you all the best, and Cheryl all the
Thank
best.
you. So I do have a great speech. However, I'm saving it for my retirement party, so y'all need to buy a ticket.
Thank you.
He said.
Next on the item is the Chief Shaw and the introduction of Sergeant Derek Maratzik and K-9 Lee.
Please don't let the dog eat Dell. Please don't let the dog eat Dell.
Very well behaved.
Yeah.
Good evening. I just want to thank you all for your time and pass on a hearty congratulations to Deputy Chief Jolda. It's been an absolute honor and a privilege to work with you the last 27 years. It's been great. You will definitely be missed. You were talking, I was 5 when you got appointed to the rescue squad, so it's like,
Show off.
So this past winter, Officer Suss had come to me and said that Bandit, our former K-9 Bandit, was getting to be about that time where he thought about retirement, and we talked about the plans for the unit, and he had expressed that he still wanted to continue, which I was thrilled to hear. Unfortunately, Bandit got really sick and had to be, we had to put him down sooner than later, and that was really heartbreaking because he was an excellent officer and did a tremendous job for us. So I told Officer Suss, whenever you're ready and whenever you want, to undertake and take on another dog, if you even want to, it's ball's totally in your court. And to his credit, he was ready. He approached me, do what you got to do, and he and another former K-9 officer that was with the Grafton Police Department, they went down to Shallow Creek Kennels down in Pennsylvania, and I think we've used them a few times in the past, right?
Yes, one time before.
Yeah, one time before, and went through a pretty good process and found the K-9 that you have here. In that, while he was down there, we had some discussions, and Officer Suss approached me about a name. And one of the things that he came out, he wanted to ask me if he thought it would be okay if we called him K-9 Lee in honor of Mike Lee, who was a beloved member of not only the Webster Police Department, but the community here in town. Homegrown kid, graduated from Bartlett, was a tremendous police officer, very, very good friend of mine, and to many other officers standing behind me. So it's an absolutely beautiful homage to name K-9 Lee in his name and in his honor. He's a Belgian Malinois Shepherd mix. He's going to be, I guess, 2 years old, coming up soon. And he went through his 3 months. He's trained in patrol, so he'll do tracking and apprehension work. And he's also going to be trained as a gun dog, so he'll be able to detect gunpowder residue and explosives and things like that, ammunition. So that's going to be extremely helpful for us, especially when it comes to evidence detection. So that's a tremendous asset. And I don't think there's a whole lot of dogs like that around this area. So that's going to be a tremendous resource, not just for Webster, but for the surrounding towns. So I wanted to take this opportunity and introduce K-9 Lee to the board, to the town administrator. We wouldn't be able to do this. We had some very, very generous support from some folks here in the community. When K-9 Bandit passed, my phone rang. I must have got 3 or 4 messages of people that wanted to know whatever they could do to fund the dog. And the folks at JV Mechanical have been phenomenal supporters of us throughout the years, my entire time here, and we couldn't have done this without them. So we are extremely thankful, and not just to them, but to everybody in the community for all the support that they've given us and our K-9 program, as well as our department and our day-to-day operations. So we thank you very much, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to K-9 Lee, and we're very excited about him. Officer Suss is a tremendously well-respected, has a ton of experience as a K-9 handler. I would say that we are very fortunate to have him in our department in Central Mass. He's on the SEMLEC regional, he used to run the K-9 unit. I believe you're still on there. But he's a tremendous resource for the commander of that unit. Very well respected. And when he said that he wanted to continue having a K-9, I was thrilled because dogs are great, but they're only as good as their handlers. And we, when I first started here, we had some handlers that weren't so hot, and it shows. And we've worked with other K-9s that, handlers come and go, but we're very fortunate. Officer Sosa is very dedicated to his craft, and he's a tremendous resource to us, and I'm thrilled that he chose to continue this. So.
Thank you. Still a pup.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And our next, we have a promotion that we'd like to present and have him sworn in by the town clerk. Officer Derek Morozic actually started his career here, and I'll have him come forward, and I believe he's got some family members that are going to actually pin his badge on so that his wife and 2 daughters can come and join him. So Officer Morozic came to us as a reserve officer in like 2004? Yes. Right, 2004. Left, went to the academy, went to the Shrewsbury Police Department.
You can spread out if you want.
Started off there, and then went to the Framingham Police Department, where we subsequently stole him. I mean, he laterally transferred from there back in July of 2019. Done a tremendous job. He just finished accident reconstruction school, so he's part of the SEMLEC, which is the Central Mass Law Enforcement Council. I should have said that with Officer Suss. It's a regional law enforcement council comprised of 81 cities and towns where communities can pool their resources and regionalize to tackle whatever issues they have. As you know, we have the SWAT team, we have the K-9, we also contribute to the accident reconstruction. So Sergeant Morozic just got, Sergeant Morozic just got certified as an accident reconstructionist, which is tremendously helpful. He's also on the motorcycle unit as well, so he rides our motorcycle unit, not just for the department, but also goes out and assists them when they have special events. He's one of our FTOs, which he does a tremendous job with the field training officer, so he's critical in the growth and development of our young officers, not just while they're on FTO, but when they continue and acts as a mentor in that capacity, so it's tremendous. He's also a background investigator for us and helps us. We utilize him not just for the officers, but as you know, we are in the process of starting a civilian traffic control unit. He's helped with that, where we have animal control officer that we're trying to get that program established with a full-time person. He'll be doing some of that as well. So he's a tremendous resource for us to have, and we're very fortunate. He has a bachelor's, he had a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and went back to Nichols and got his master's degree in counterterrorism intelligence. Did I say that right? Okay. So he's one of several officers that went back. It's a tremendous degree, and it's only further helped them in their career. So we're very fortunate to have that resource next door at Nichols College. We had an opening in Sergeant. We had our first, so Derek is actually our first non-civil service. We left civil service in January of 2019. He's our first non-civil service promotion, where we had an assessment center come through. Derek was the top of the list and the clear-cut choice. He's currently on the midnight shift, does a phenomenal job, and I expect him to continue the upward trend that he's done since he's been here. He came to us back in July of 2019. So it's my privilege to present to you Sergeant Morozic. I believe someone's going to pin him. I don't know if the daughters have figured out who it's going to be. All three. We have a team effort here. So.
solemnly swear and affirm that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as a sergeant of the Upton Police Force, according to the best abilities and understandings, agreeable with town bylaws and the laws of the Commonwealth of South Dakota. Congratulations.
Sergeant, those stripes look good on you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, stay safe.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Sergeant. That's great. The kids get to watch that. Nice job again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief.
Next on the agenda is review and vote to approve of the general obligation bonds and sign the closing documents. Yeah.
You might want to give it a second.
I know. See you again.
Nice that he came for his nephew. Oh, that's all. It'll still be going on.
Tim, I don't know if you want to have any. Okay. Basically, this is a $4.23 million set of bonds that are 20-year bonds, I believe.
Yes, and I know despite Tim's humility there, I would ask that he just give a 1-minute overview of what these bonds are for specifically.
Yeah.
I know we had a conversation when we had our agenda planning meeting. My information to the chair and vice chair was incomplete in terms of exactly what these bonds are for, so thanks, Tim.
You're welcome. Good evening, everybody.
Tim.
So basically, it's a borrowing to cover some of our smaller projects, if you consider them smaller. Part of the money is for the Bartlett High feasibility study, it's just for the feasibility costs that weren't reimbursed. It's about $270,000, so it's not real, it's related to, but certainly not a big portion of the construction costs. There's also about $457,000 for town hall roof replacement. Then there's about $1.6 million for Lincoln, Whitcomb, Nelson water mains. And the rest of it, about $2 million, is for the PFAS treatment planning and design. I'll just also kind of point out that when we added the PFAS water treatment design borrowing with it, we actually ended up borrowing the whole amount, the $4 million, with our own credit rating, as opposed to the other issuances could have qualified to be part of the state qualified bond program. But with this last one, we pulled everything out, and so we did really good to get a really good rate for this on our own, which is very nice to do. Any questions?
My compliments to you, treasurer collector, and the entire financial staff, our school superintendent, because it did take quite some time to stabilize the town's financial situation and good budgeting practices. So the entire package really had to come together over a few years. So if you could extend those comments to staff, even though I'm here every day, I'd appreciate that.
So through the chair, so were all of these done short-term, and now we're wrapping them up to do multi-term?
Everything but PFAS was done short-term, and then PFAS, there was no short-term borrowing. The PFAS design, we just bonded right away.
Okay.
We just felt it was better timing to do the bonding than to the other projects. We would have had to pay down a certain portion of the short-term borrowing, so it was, and with the way the rates were looking at the time, we felt it was better to wrap that PFAS in with a, to make a $2 million borrowing, a $4 or $4.5 million borrowing. We felt we were going to get a better rate, and that's one of the reasons why we did it as such.
Thank you.
Any other excuse me, any other questions?
Through the chair, the only other question I have is, does this require any water sewer commission signing, or is it now simply in the hands of the Board of Selectmen? Especially with regards to the water portions.
Well, yeah, I think we're all been made aware of the issues, and it's just a matter of lumping everything into a
Yeah,
borrowing
right, the legal
package.
authority is,
Yeah.
remains the
Okay.
Board of
Yeah.
Selectmen, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I have a motion to approve the borrowing?
So, Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion. I'm just not sure if we have to go to, I think it's page 72, and do the motion as prescribed there, or make a motion to adopt the resolutions that's listed on 72. Do we have any specific motion in mind for all these? Because I do know that on page 72, the clerk, which is me, is certifying these votes. So I don't know if we can look in our package. Is this the series of votes that you'd like to see?
I think, that yes, there's,
Okay, because there's probably about 8 different votes and 2 pages of them. So I'll make a motion to adopt the votes as provided in our Selectmen's package, which is listed on page 72 and page 73 of our board package.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Should we
Is there,
take a
is there
roll?
anything else that we need for the votes that anyone's aware of? Okay, the 2 pages of series of votes in here, okay.
We don't need to read this, or do we,
No, that's why I was making the motion to adopt the
Yeah.
votes that are in our,
on those 2 pages?
in our package.
If there's no other questions,
You're going with the ones on 71, not the ones on 75. I just want to be clear. Because there's a few more.
Yeah, because there's
Well,
a number,
there are a
there's a
lot
number
that-
of the, there's a number of the, I just want to make sure we don't have to come back and do it again. There's a number of them, like on page 80, where all of the selectmen are signing, and the treasurer and town clerk are also signing. But those, that's the actual note.
No, that's the note.
That's the actual note that appears on page 75.
Well, there were a lot of signings here. It's just not 4 or 5, but it's, what, 15, 20?
yeah.
I think there were 15, 20. We're not going to vote on them all.
No, I think
No,
what,
I think in this page, this 2-page document,
Right.
this is what, there's many votes that we're
Right.
packaging into one, and
I mean, for the record, we could read it if we wanted to. I'll try to speed read it. If, Chair, if you want me to do that, that way we won't get into any issues with regards to open meeting law or what
you
have
wanna
you, because the
start, I'll
public
finish
can't see it. Okay, I'll do the first page.
okay.
Vote of the Board of Selectmen, I, the Clerk of the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Webster, Massachusetts, the town, certify that a meeting of the board held July 10th, 2023, of which meeting all members of the board were duly notified and at which a quorum was present. The following votes were unanimously passed, all of which appear upon the official record of the board in my custody. So these are the series of votes that we'll be taking. Voted, we hereby determine in accordance with GL Chapter 70B that the cost of the Bartlett High School feasibility study authorized by vote of the town passed on January 13th, 2020, per Article 1, being refinanced with proceeds of a portion of the bonus of the bonds defined below, together with all other bonds and notes of the town previously issued to pay costs of this project, comma, does not exceed the portion of the total cost of the project that is not being paid by the school facilities grant, and we hereby approve the issuance of notes and bonds to finance this project under GL Chapter 70B. Further voted that the sale of the $4,230,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2023 bonds of the town dated July 18th, 2023, the bonds, to Bank of New York Mellon Capital Markets, LLC, at the price of $4,595,463.18, and accrued interest, if any, is hereby approved and confirmed, period. The bond shall be payable on July 15th of the years and in the principal amounts and bear interest at the respective rates as follows. There is a table here listed from 2024 going all the way to 2023 in principal amounts ranging from $240,000 down to $200,000, with interest rates ranging from 5% down to 4%, depending upon the tranche of each of these years. Further voted that in connection with the marketing and sale of the bonds, the preparation and distribution of a notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated June 20th, 2023, and a final official statement dated June 27th, 2023, the official statement, each in such forms as may be approved by the town treasurer, be and hereby are ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Further voted that the bond shall be subject to redemption at the option of the town upon such terms and conditions as are set forth in the official statement.
Finish.
Go ahead.
Further voted that the town treasurer and the Board of Selectmen be and hereby are authorized to execute and deliver a continuing disclosure undertaking in compliance with Section Rule 15C2-12 in such form as may be approved by bond counsel to the town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by reference in the bonds for the benefit of the holders of the bonds from time to time. Further voted that we authorize and direct the town treasurer to establish post-issuance federal tax compliance procedures and continuing disclosure procedures in such forms as the town treasurer and bond counsel deem sufficient, or if such procedures are currently in place, to review and update said procedures in order to monitor and maintain the tax-exempt status of the bonds and to comply with relevant securities laws. Further voted that any certificates or documents relating to the bonds collectively, the documents may be executed in several counterparts, each of which shall be regarded as an original and all of which shall constitute one and the same document. Delivery of an executed counterpart of a signature page to a document by electronic mail in a PDF file or by other electronic transmission shall be as effective as delivery of a manually executed counterpart signature page to such document, and electronic signatures on any document shall be deemed original signatures for the purpose of the documents and all matters relating thereunto, having the same legal effect as original signatures. Further voted that each member of the Board of Selectmen, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all such actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them or by any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes.
So, Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that what you and I just read be the form of motion to be voted on. We're going to have a second.
A second.
You second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Should we take a roll call? Take a roll call vote?
Yes.
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 Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you,
That
Tim.
was the easy part. Next on the agenda is a discussion and possible vote to approve the one-day liquor license application that's in your packet, submitted by the Kildare Island Club for a wine and cheese gathering to be held on August 26, 2023, from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the 191 Kildare Island Road, Webster, Massachusetts. I think everything is in the packet, the document. I just wanted to ask, have we not adopted the changes that we approved on the application?
This might be an old one.
Okay.
The tip certification, I did ask, and Susan, the applicant, is going to be the one serving.
Okay.
So she is a small gathering.
Okay. Just a moot point. I just want to make sure we get that on the document. But and the chief has, the police chief has signed off on this as well.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the request as submitted in our package, which begins on page 139 through page 141.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. We have, next on the item is discussion and possible vote to approve the common victular license application for the Alley Cat Diner on 117 East Main Street in Webster, Mass. I think that's been all reviewed and signed off on.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the Alley Cat Common Vic license application beginning on page 142 of our package.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Next on the agenda is discussion on appointment of Sarah Sansom to the Finance Committee. Since our last meeting, I believe Sarah has had opportunity to rethink her role and her changing from working to retired and going through a lot of changes, rethought, and she withdrew her letter for appointment to the Finance Committee. I'd just like to take a second. I think she was on the Finance Committee for 9 or 10 years, and she's been on other committees, and I want to thank her for that commitment to the town.
Thank you, Sarah.
Next item is discussion and possible vote to appoint Tom Clabert as the Board of Selectmen's delegate to the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission, known as CMRPC. I think we had a discussion when we were meeting last week to plan this, and going back to our previous review of the town administrator, Tom had suggested, and I think now he's volunteered, to get involved in the CMRPC, which is a regional community program to help problems with the communities, interrelated problems with the communities. So I think it's a perfect fit. Tom has been involved and gone to the legislative breakfasts before and things like that. So if there's no other discussion, I'd like for a approval to appoint him. A motion.
I'll make a motion to appoint Tom Clabert as the Board of Selectmen's delegate to the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a discussion and possible vote to appoint, and it's Christopher Fowler, is that correct? Not Patrick. Christopher Fowler to the Planning Board as an alternate member for a 3-year term, expired in 2026. I think in the packet was his application and showing interest, and I think it's nice to see younger people stepping forward in the community and partaking in the community and its future. So,
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to appoint Christopher Fowler to the Planning Board as an alternate member for a 3-year term to expire 2026.
Second?
we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Next is ratification of the collective bargaining agreements for SEIU Local 888 Clerical, SEIU Local 8888 DPW, and MassCore Local 473.
Yes, so asking you to just vote to ratify the contracts you've already done in executive session. And for the sake of ease, I would perhaps ask that you do so and authorize the chair and vice chair to execute those documents.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to Ratify the collective bargaining agreements, SEIU Local 888, Clerical, SEIU Local 888, DPW, Mass Cop Local 473, and authorize the chair and town administrator to sign those agreements.
Did you say chair, vice chair, and chair, vice?
Whatever the
Chair
board's pleasure.
and vice chair
Okay, yeah, yeah. And
to sign those
Second.
agreements.
we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
Mr. Chair, the only question I have is, should we take a vote now to release our executive session minutes now that we've ratified, or do you want to wait until the next meeting? Because that was the only
Right, I
topic.
I mean, I think you could certainly revisit that on the warrant to do that. That is I mean, on the agenda, that is the only thing that was holding up possible release. In the event the board chose not to do so tonight.
The only thing I was thinking of is, for the next meeting, it gives an opportunity to review where we are at any executive sessions. Is there any other?
That's fine, yeah.
You know, so I'd like to hold off till the
Right.
next meeting, if that's okay.
Mhm.
Do that. Next item is discussion for further review of the following selectmen policies with input from department heads.
We
No,
have discussion
Oh,
on
I'm sorry.
National Grid.
The National Grid.
Oh, yes, yes. Discussion and possible vote to approve National Grid's request for a grant of easement for the Bartlett High School renovation project. I think since this was put on the agenda, we've been educated a little bit that
Yes, last week when Tom, Earl, and I met to discuss the agenda, the request for the board to sign an easement had been relatively, had, I think, come in the door the day or two before. Looking at the request, it struck us as this is just too simple. So I did contact our town council and was advised that, yes, that is too simple. That's not how it works. Ultimately, an easement has to be approved by town meeting. So in the meantime, what council has informed me is that the board would approve what's known as a license, which is basically access to that property during time of construction. So I do have a copy of the license, which looks an awful lot like the easement and probably not something that's going to be of much interest to you under the circumstances, because you've essentially already reviewed the language. So I will pass out a copy of it for you.
And we also have an email that was sent out that contains, sent out late this afternoon, that contains that information.
It's a tall water bottle.
Thank you.
And this is a permanent change, I understand, correct? They're moving the current electrical supply for the school to this new supply that's going to be construction and beyond?
Quick memo, again, not sure if people had an opportunity to review. This is something that came through yesterday from KP Law. Katie Klein is one of the land use attorneys at KP Law. She reviewed the request, reviewed the easement, got in touch with the appropriate attorney at National Grid. She was a little confused by why the easement document would have been sent to us and not a license document. So in a fairly quick order, she was able to get a copy of the license agreement, which is what she expected, and she has reviewed it and recommended that this, to some extent, you might call it a temporary easement, or and she's reviewed it as to form and recommends that the board sign this to give access to National Grid. Eventually, as we head towards town meeting, we can work on the easement. She's already sent me draft language for the town meeting warrant article. So as time gets closer, the board, whatever action the board is required to take, we'll put that on a later agenda.
Do you know when this action is going to plan on commencing? Is it before?
The license agreement takes,
Is tonight, but I'm talking about the actual work will that precede the town meeting?
Yes, well, this allows the contractor to go forward
Proceed.
right away. Yes.
Through the chair, if I might, what happens if we grant the license and
Right.
the town meeting doesn't grant the easement?
Right.
It's a very good question. Very good question. I don't have an answer, but I'm assuming town meeting understands that the utility has to access the property for the construction project. And so it's an excellent question, Mr. Rogers, and I don't have an answer for you.
Okay.
Yeah, and through the chair, the only thing I would suggest is maybe we do a contingent vote, a subject to vote, so that we approve the license and authorize the work to begin, subject to the granting of the easement. So if we give them, in essence, they need permission to do the work. And
That's
if we give them a license, it allows them to do the work. But if we form our motion that if the easement is not approved, the license is removed. Now, they may have already finished the work,
Yeah, I think
which is
that's
the, but I,
be a careful approach, yes, but you're right, they're not going to undo the work they've already done. so.
correct.
And again, this is a fairly common practice for construction projects on public property, but it's a
I could,
scenario, Mark, that I've not
well,
heard of.
I could just imagine, I mean, the high school project's a contentious one for some people. I can imagine some people just want to be obstruction. That's the-
I mean,
They try to throw a wrench at it.
it's a costly solution, but there's
Yeah.
a special town meeting option.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the work would presumably be already completed on the property. And to some extent, it's a parliamentary procedure. But I would ask that you do approve the license, but I will get that answer for the board.
Through the chair, if this is the formal grant license,
Yes.
we just need to correct the spelling of Claybert Ave on there
Oh, yeah.
before we complete that.
I should have caught that.
Fair enough.
You've probably seen it spelled like that.
Keelbart, I like that.
Gilbert,
I
yeah.
will,
So,
we will correct that in the final document that's submitted back to National Grid.
through the chair for Rick, so would you suggest we don't have that subject to language, or? I'm
I-
perfectly fine doing it
Yeah,
either way.
I don't see it as having any
Needed.
practical effect, practical value.
And it does in here, it does indicate in our paperwork that we would be looking to grant a license. I realize it's not on the agenda, but I think because what we've got
Right,
in
it's-
front of us refers to the granting of a license, I'll make the motion to grant the license to National Grid, or as it lists in here, Massachusetts Electric Company, for the easement that is being requested.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the license for National Grid.
And Mr. Chair, just in further discussion, I did very quickly read through and compare, and it looks like exactly the same
Yeah.
language for the license in the easement. Speed reading.
Yes, right. And in fairness, again, this issue really came up, I think, the day before, Mr. Gabor and Mr. Claybart and I sat down to discuss the agenda, so.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Okay, everyone, all in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
And just as an aside, the project manager has emailed me a couple times now with the easement attachment, urging us to sign this as soon as possible. So there's even a little bit of confusion on the part of the project manager as to how this is supposed to work, so.
Well, thanks for asking the question and squaring away the easement requirements.
Okay, so now on to the next item is discussion and further review of the following selectmen policies with input from department heads. If you look over this second half of the policies, we started looking over it last week, and it seems like there's a number of policies that raise the question, should they be selectmen policies or not? And should there be input from the department heads that's charged with the policy? And some of them just seem, you know, like the designer selection procedures. It's not a practice that we really use. So with that being said, I'd like to move this on to our next meeting and give Rick and the department heads time to review and offer suggestions and take it from there. We can review it point by point. Some of these are pretty benign, but some of them are important. You know, like the fuel efficiency policy and disposition of property valued at $10,000. That's pretty standard language, but the rules and regulations for the athletic fields, the smoke-free workforce policy is pretty standard. Dogs at Memorial Beach, parking violation fees. When you start going over the details of those policies, you kind of question, are we really doing this? And you know, it's nice to have a policy, but it's nicer to have policies that mean something.
And that are enforceable.
And are
Right, so,
enforceable.
We have made request of the various department heads to review some of these policies. We've had some feedback, not as complete as we will. So the goal is to give the board more of again, a bullet
Like
type.
we did last time, yeah. I think
right,
that worked very
right.
well.
So,
and-
But we are still waiting for some feedback, and I think, you know, some of these policies may seem a little bit odd at first glance.
Yeah.
So maybe a little antiquated, or we mentioned like the, you know, water sewer policies. Those may belong with the Water and Sewer Commission rather than the Board of Selectmen. So that's just an example.
So with that, we'll shorten the meeting by a whole lot.
Well, it's only 5 minutes on the
Well, that
agenda.
sort of explains why it was only 5 minutes, because I
Yeah,
thought,
that's- so we're right on track, yeah.
because I thought that was underestimated.
A motion to table?
I don't think we, it's a discussion, there's no motion. I don't think we need a motion.
It'll just appear on the next agenda.
Yeah. Next is Town Administrator report.
And I will pass out a copy of this when I'm done. I don't want you to not pay attention to what I'm saying here. You know, so. First, as you know, we are in the midst of recruiting a new deputy chief. First recruitment was not successful. So the chief and I are working on kind of figuring out the next step forward.
So this is the fire department.
Correct. Did I not say the, oh, I'm sorry, okay. Okay. Something Toby needs to know, I
we didn't want
suppose.
to, we didn't want
That's
to.
right. I might be a little surprised watching the meeting tonight, so, yes, the fire chief, deputy fire chief position, again, first recruitment unsuccessful. The chief and I are speaking with the recruiting firm that did the first search in the morning, and we have some questions, concerns, advice. Ultimately, we'll have to decide if we want to use that same process again. So hopefully the next week or so, we'll have some direction. And again, that's to fill the position recently vacated by retiring Chris Jolda. So our health director remains on maternity leave, but is working on a part-time basis, monitoring the activities of the office, responding to matters, needs of the office. She's giving direction to staff, et cetera. This includes monitoring the efforts of the Oxford health agent, who's helping us out at a temporary basis. I think safe to say that we've been as flexible as we can with Camille over the last several months. And again, she's really giving as much as she can under the circumstances. I actually believe, and I have it in my report, that I think she left the hospital and made a phone call on her way, you know, to the office. So she's really remarkable that you know, how dedicated she is too. So I just want people to understand that. I think it's good for the board to appreciate how dedicated some of your people are here. Mr. Block has resigned from the Conservation Commission last week, so we do have 3 openings and plus 2 alternate openings on the Conservation Commission. I think we're all doing our best to try and recruit some members. I think some of you know that we do have, we've outreached one person in particular who we're still waiting, hopefully, to make a decision for us. I think somebody who would be very qualified. I'd mention her name and try to hold her feet to the fire, but I don't think that's appropriate. So I would ask anybody that's interested to contact our office or the Land Use Planning Conservation Office, and, during business hours, or, and obviously implore board members, planning board, elected, appointed officials to do what you can to help recruit people for this very important role. They are going into the process of reviewing the school plans very soon. So to have more than a bare minimum available to do that would really be helpful. Moving forward, our joint venture with Dudley to share the Veteran Services Officer began this July 1. Steve Rogerson is the Dudley VSO who is also serving capacity with Webster. So far, I don't know if those of you know Steve Rogerson. He's been a veterans agent in Dudley for many years. I'm not sure you're going to find a more dedicated person to the veterans in the area than Steve. We have a 1-year agreement with Dudley just to see if this works. There are some things that may not go over well, in terms of staffing or how duties are split. I don't anticipate that, but before moving to looking to move towards a legal district, we thought it might be good to give it a trial run. State law requires that any community over 12,000 population have a full-time agent or participate in a full-time district. Dudley is just under 12,000. Some would suggest they're over 12,000, but they go by the latest federal census. One way or the other, Dudley's going to be over that threshold pretty soon. We've already had full-time service, so we think this will help our service, but to a great extent, this is to some extent a good neighbor policy with the town of Dudley, but I think it does help serve Webster too, but this is why I want to give it a little time to see how it plays out. So I'm optimistic. Again, I'm not sure you're going to find somebody more dedicated to the function than Mr. Rogerson.
Through the chair, if I could, so first of all, I agree, as you know, I know some.
Yeah.
Rogerson a little bit. I've been a little confused, because I probably should ask you, but what's the rest of the staffing of the 2 offices at this point?
Well, at the moment, the only other staff person is the woman who is currently the assistant in Dudley.
Okay.
So we are extending additional hours to her to work as part of this operation. I think she had 15 hours or 12 hours, I believe, in Dudley, and we've increased that overall, I think, to 19. I have to double check the exact numbers. So it's essentially one and a half full-time equivalent employees. And that's another thing we're going to have to monitor, see if that's enough. We don't know that yet. I think it's safe to say I haven't personally met the assistant from Dudley, but we hear nothing but really amazing things about her, how she helps keep that office running. And it's been Rich Howella, our gentleman who's been our acting agent since Mr. Brodeur retired. He also can't say enough about Mr. Rogerson and continues to offer his help and support as much as possible. And realistically, to the extent that we can keep Rich involved in the operation, we want to do that. His years of experience and wisdom and knowledge of the population, the individuals, some of their background and history is invaluable. So we're trying to keep as many people involved, and Mr. Howell will do anything we ask him to do. So to the extent that we may need additional help, I think we can count on him. But I think on a long-term basis, we will have to evaluate whether 1.5 people is sufficient. I will say, though, to the extent that we need to staff beyond that would make us wonder whether or not it's financially of any value to Webster financially to engage in a district. But, so it's an ongoing, something for us to monitor, but like I said, I'm optimistic, and again, you know Mr. Rogerson, and he's got a lot of energy and passion for the job, so. As the chief mentioned here, that we are looking for a full-time animal control officer. That wasn't necessarily the intent. Well, I'm not sure that's the right way to put it. We had hoped, and we still hope, that we may have a relationship with some other community so that, so that somebody is assisting us in terms of financing a full-time position versus the very part-time position that we've had. We're looking at a salary range that would probably be about double as to what is currently in the budget with the part-time person that we had previously. So there will be some funding gap that would have to be made up through the current police budget or through some relationship with another community. Dudley has expressed interest in participating with us, but obviously the dynamics in Dudley now, I'm not too sure how feasible that will be. So the ad has been placed. There has been some response, but it's a little premature to know exactly when and who is going to be filling that job. So that is a work in progress. I know that that's kind of become an issue, a public issue to people, so to the extent that I want people to understand that in terms of the overall function, animal control function, I think a little more staffing and a little more putting it under the police department will really be I think to some extent it was maybe a little unfair to the prior incumbent. A lot was expected with limited resources and assistance. So I think this is a better approach to addressing that altogether.
And through the chair, Rick, I think it's important to thank Chief Shaw for offering, I think, because he offered,
Yes.
as I understand, to have it under the police department. So I want to thank him for
Yes,
doing
he
that.
came in and I think he was unaware that I was going to ask him. And he offered, and I think, what, Courtney, it took about 4 seconds for us to take him up on that offer. But again, it is essentially a public safety function. You know, the documentation, the liability, those things that it's very important to have, you know, proper record keeping that only really can be done through dispatch and the methods of the police organization. So. And our Cable Advisory Committee has set a date of August 28th for the required public hearing. It is a part of the legal process for renewing a license. At that time, we will certainly not have an agreement in place, but council has recommended that it's good to have a public hearing to, you know, take people's input before you actually consummate some agreement. I think, and Tom can tell you, it's been a little frustrating dealing with the cable company in terms of getting information from them that can be useful in our negotiations. This is not open to a competitive bid process with other cable companies. The only thing that there's a presumption of renewal by the state, and the only things that are actually negotiable are the per subscriber fee and whatever capital investment grant that we would get from the cable provider. Now, keeping in mind that a grant is really the subscribers paying a capital cost in a different, through their own rates. So it's really not, it's not well understood, and it wouldn't be, because I certainly wouldn't know the limitations of what the town can do, the licensing authority can do with regard to a renewal of a cable license. So August 28th is that public hearing, and certainly we encourage as much participation as possible. Town council will also be available, probably remotely, to explain the process and answer any questions. And in the wake of, back to Dudley, 2 failed overrides. As you know, Dudley has eliminated funding for its public library. In reaction to that, the library trustees have established a policy where they decline to extend borrowing privileges to residents of Dudley. They do have another town meeting and election scheduled in Dudley. I don't know to what extent it's their intent to try and restore services in the library. one of the requirements of the state is that districts don't loan to decertified districts, unless they have a waiver. And waivers are not, they're not hard to get, but they're usually something that you would get for 1 year. And a lot of times that's because of late budget cuts or whatever the case may be. But generally, the requirement by the state is that if there's a reduction in library services, that it's proportionate to other reductions in other services throughout the town. So generally. So if that happens, especially if there's a, special town meeting during the year in communities and there's some budget cuts, it may very well be that a library has to, request a waiver for some period of time. So it's not unusual. So if a community is decertified and doesn't have a waiver, then those lending privileges throughout the network are not extended. So this is the library trustees came up with this policy, I think, about 2 weeks ago. This is the type of policy that's fairly standard throughout the state. It's just, it was the, prodding from this vote in Dudley that made the library trustees formalize this policy. As of last week, I know that the library did have some calls, some inquiries, but I have been informed that people from Dudley have been very polite and don't consider Webster to be the problem by not actually extending services to them. So it would seem that, for what it's worth, that Webster is not in the crosshairs by people who believe we're not serving them properly. Their concerns are placed where they should be. And certainly, we're not in the position of Dudley, and I'm not in a position to make value judgments on behalf of Dudley. I certainly sympathize with their situation. But the taxpayers of Webster aren't here to fund library services of Dudley. So.
And through the chair, it's a difficult situation throughout Dudley, and I'm sure, Rick, wherever we can try to help them in their kind of budget difficulties now, we'll try to do this. I think people have to understand it's state law that dictates this, which is why the library trustees voted the way they did. But if worse comes to worse in Dudley, people should realize they can still come in and use our library. Correct. It's just they cannot take out books, is I think what I remember reading in
That's
that notice.
Anything you would need a library card for, which essentially is only books, loaning books, and scheduling of conference rooms.
The study
Those are
rooms.
The only things that, right. You really need a library card for. So you're right. The public computers are available. The space is available. They can certainly visit the library, but that's the extent of the services that are available. And on that same subject, we are concerned about the potential spillover effect from some of the reductions, particularly in public safety over in Dudley. One of the biggest concerns of the first concern we have is really fire mutual aid would seem to be the first function that might be impacted adversely. The chief's concern really is overnight shifts, when most departments would staff a little more lean than they would during the other two shifts. I'm sorry, usually 24-hour shifts. But that's the, 24-hour shifts, as you know, with vacations and, benefit time, other benefit time, sometimes the ranks get a little thin at night. That's how it generally goes, because that's when there's least activity. So it's that nighttime coverage, mutual aid coverage, that is a particular concern to Chief Hickey. I think since that vote, I think we've discussed this every single day, in terms of potential impact, and I would assure you that that's going to continue. Every day, I'll be speaking to the chiefs, and the chiefs are speaking to their peers in other abutting communities. And as you well know, mutual aid doesn't, extends well beyond abutting communities too. So this is going to be a concern throughout the region. And at the moment, all we can do is monitor it. But it is a concern for all of our public safety agencies. I also know that I think they've made some reductions in their Council on Aging Senior Center. The town, Webster, has already has a lot of customers, so to speak, from Dudley, so that's nothing different. So not sure that's going to have any significant impact on our senior center. So it really is, you know, public safety and library right now that, but I agree with Mr. Becker. You know, we all try to do what we can for our neighbors, and they try to do the same for us, and we'll certainly help them in any way we can, but obviously not to the expense of our own services, obviously. So.
Through the chair, so are there, I mean, we're not the only town that might be affected by the mutual aid.
That's correct,
So,
yes.
Maybe it's an obvious question. Are there conversations going on between our chief and chief of other abutting
Yes.
towns? Okay.
Yes, and I'm sure that's going to be an ongoing, I don't know if it's going to be every day,
Yeah.
but I suspect that there'll be at least incident by incident by incident. Now, again, I don't know to what extent the upcoming town meeting and override vote again in July and August respectively is going to have an impact. I don't know what their goals are going to be yet. I haven't seen any financial, you know, proposals. Courtney, have you seen anything yet from, I think there was looking at, come out today. I think today they were supposed to be releasing some of that information, so recommendation from the Finance Committee. So I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it in any depth at this point. I think it just came out. In fact, it might even be a presentation tonight over in Dudley, so we haven't had a chance to see what their priorities are going to be for additional funding.
Yeah, from what I've read, it's a series of at least 5 votes for various departmental
A menu
overrides,
form.
a menu à la carte type approach, and then all subject to what happens with the school vote with the additional 900,000, which could
That's
impact
going to be a major problem.
more.
Right, So 2 other brief things. First of all, we want to welcome back our library director, Sandra Murphy, from her maternity leave. And once again, we have another employee who you would hardly know that, you know, that she had a baby in terms of how much interaction she's had with the department. And I'd like to think all this means people like their jobs because we treat them well. I hope that's the case. But so I want
Or
to.
there's something in the water, I'm not sure
That
which
could
of
be,
those
right.
ones.
So I guess, let's ask our water commissioner what magic you have going there, Earl. So once again, I really want to thank Sandra. And also Evan Hale, who is the assistant director. He really has done, I think, a really great job over the, you know, during her absence. It wasn't that long ago that I think the board may be aware that through our office and the trustees, and with the help of the union, we were able to restructure a little bit, which really has helped us during this period. Now, we didn't predict, you know, that Sandra was going to, you know, have a baby, but we knew it was a good management plan to try to move some positions around and get some more formal chain of command, and it has worked out very well, and I'm sure the trustees are very happy, you know, that we were able to put this in place. So my goal was really to just, again, welcome back Sandra, thank her, and appreciate, you know, her efforts. So if you see her, well, just ask her, please, not to have another baby soon, okay? I think it's her second in about 2 years now, but we certainly miss her when she's not here.
And certainly to thank Evan as well for stepping
Yes,
up.
yeah, he's really done a good job, and I think he's blended in very well with the team of department heads, too. One last thing, I promise you.
No, we're doing good.
I said I was going to keep this brief. I'm not sure I've been successful, but just following up on our human resources project, our next steps are to update our policies based upon the model policies that we received from the Collins Center, and to determine what employee town official training, whether online or in person, that needs to be offered either annually on a or other basis. There are policies that we've been informed that we don't have, that we should have, and some of them are rather obscure that you wouldn't know that we're supposed to have. I would guess that 90% of the towns in the state don't know you're supposed to have certain policies. So we'd be looking to create those policies, and certainly coordinating training, dates, times, you know, how we get people in the room. There's certain things that for appointed and official and elected officials that we should be doing. So that's the next phase of that. So it's a lot of work, but we think we have the right people in place to do that at the moment. So, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. So, and I have in written form for the board to take with you tonight if you choose.
Thank you. Have a motion to accept town administrator report?
I make a motion to accept the town administrator's report.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Thank you, Rick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous? Okay.
Pass them down.
Proposed future meeting date, we're meeting on Monday, August 14th at 6 PM here. And as far as future events go, I just wanted to mention, well, first, the summer concert series at the French River Park starts this Wednesday for 5.
But Pulaski will be at the town hall, they always play.
Oh, that's right. But the other 4 remaining weeks are planned, weather permitting, down the next consecutive Wednesdays at the French River Park. And Tuesday, August 8th will be from 5 to 7 p.m., National Night Out, Memorial Beach, Webster. And that's usually a good turnout, weather permitting. And I'd just like to backtrack to the, I apologize, the boards and committee vacancies. We'll go over the list. I don't think that the list has changed much, but I think we've created the pamphlet for volunteers. It tells a little bit about what were the different committees and boards that are looking for help. And this will be put in various locations throughout Town Hall and whatnot. And talking with Rick and Tom last week, you know, we've tried various things. We've tried, you know, the Monday meetings with the selectmen a few years back. That didn't have any turnout. We've been advocating these every month, the openings and positions. So far, we haven't gotten on anything that's really stands out and is producing anything. I suggested that maybe, in starting with the National Night Out, that if we could get one of our talented artists and to make a sign, that I'd be willing to stand, you know, at the public night out and be a listening device and advocating for these volunteers. And I'd like to throw that out to the other selectmen that at various functions, we talked about a little table and a sign or something like that, you know, Webster needs you or something like that. But just to get out and talk to the community and use, you know, see if that has any benefit. I think it's a small investment to make. So ask any board members, you know, in the future events, whether it's schools, library, veterans, whatever events that go on that you partake of. Everything else, Randy?
Between 10 boards and committees, you must know somebody, Randy.
Yeah, if we can maybe get copies of it, that'd be great,
Yeah.
and even a PDF of it
Yeah.
would be great. And maybe just a thought for Carol, I don't know if the folks that collect the money or check for tickets at Memorial Beach, if we can ask them to hand them out, because we do have a lot of throughput,
Sure.
you know, potential committee members going through there. If we can have a bunch of those handouts there, we can hand them out to the people.
And through the chair, I wonder if we can even get some, there's certain locations that will hang things up, you know, in their shops and their businesses that you can poke up, and we might be able to.
Well, I think, Kelly, you've been sort of spearheading this, correct? And I think we've talked about putting them, you know, out in various locations, but if there's specific ideas, I mean, we can
Yeah.
shoot them at Kelly and.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll be happy to ask a local employer if they can put them on their HR boards.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, last month, we floated the idea of when school's back in session of finding a way to get this to parents of the children through the school,
Yeah,
which,
yeah.
again, I like that idea because it, number one, it's a younger
Yeah.
demographic and it crosses the socioeconomic
Yeah.
demographics as well.
Well, I did talk to the Bartlett High School principal several months, in the early spring, about the opportunity for steering some high school student that's civic-minded, and maybe partaking in a project with the Board of Selectmen, much like they have junior people who report to the Board of, the school committee, and high school students and things like that. So if there's a fit, you know, that maybe we, you know, I think we got to get out in the community. It's one thing to say this at, you know, our meetings and things, but another thing to get out to the community. So all ideas welcome, I think, is a good way.
And this last week, we started working on a particular goal of that the board had voted, again, to start doing more outreach, particularly to the non-English speaking community. We had a very nice meeting, and the school superintendent was involved, and so that's not exactly along this line, but
It is, though,
but in
yeah.
terms of, you know, how do we start getting to, you know, to people through the school system? So we didn't discuss this particularly, but it's
Well, maybe we should consider having this in multiple languages too, for the first time, if we really want to attract folks. That might help out as well.
That's a good idea, yeah.
yeah.
Great
That's
ideas.
kind of right on target, I think, with what some of the conversations we had with again, the chief and school superintendent and other officials who we've identified as being helpful in that effort, so.
And just in closing this out, I think like you had mentioned, the Conservation Commission is in need of
Yeah.
3. So again, if there's any, you know, Webster Lake committees that
Sure.
you know, might be
Right.
good.
No, and I think we do have a full-time agent, so I think some of the historical burden that may have been placed on some of the members, is not there anymore. So hopefully it'll be a more pleasant experience with some staffing help.
So just, again, through the chair, can we, or is someone going to talk to the president of the Lake Association? 'Cause that would- or if they haven't already?
I
'cause
haven't
that-
spoken to him personally, but I did text him,
Okay,
asking for if he had some ideas or any recruitment help that he could.
that's great, yeah.
so,
Whenever they have their board meeting or their,
Right. Yeah, I told him
monthly meeting.
I'm certainly happy to attend any of those meetings if it would be helpful, but I don't want to oppose myself in areas where it might not be.
well, and we may even check with Chair Wigglesworth, if he'd be willing. I think he's spoken in the past to them, to the Webster Lake Association. He may be worthwhile to ask him to participate in one of their board meetings or member meetings to recruit.
Sure. I'll be happy to talk to him about that.
I think a member meeting.
So if there's nothing else, there's nothing else on the agenda,
We go to a general meeting of members, not just a board.
to adjourn?
Make a motion that we adjourn?
Second?
A motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye? Aye?
Thank you.
You?